In the new administrative capital east of Cairo, Egypt has inaugurated a vast new state strategic command headquarters, popularly dubbed the Octagon. Observers describe it as one of the most ambitious and possibly the largest military command centers in the world, built to project Egypt's growing military prowess. Now, Egypt's inauguration of new military headquarters is not the news anymore, but how it might be a concern for a region which is always on edge. And now, more interestingly, its unveiling comes at a sensitive moment in Egypt-Israel relations, with the Gaza war, border frictions, and the questions over Sinai deployment all feeding into Israeli scrutiny of Cairo's military move. Remember, the Octagon's opening coincides with a period of renewed tensions between the two neighbors who share a 152-mile border and together control Gaza's two land crossings. While the 1979 peace treaty, security coordination, and shared interest along the Gaza frontier still give both sides strong reasons to avoid any sort of rupture, but the scale of Egypt's military modernization and the symbolism of the Octagon raises understandable concerns in Israel's security establishment. So that's why in today's edition of From the News Desk, we will talk about Egypt's new Octagon command complex, how it has naturally drawn Israeli attention, and are we staring at another conflict emerging in the Middle East? Egyptian President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi formally inaugurated the Octagon in a ceremony that featured the signing of its official charter and the raising of the armed forces flag over its new headquarters. Now, the event was notable not only for its elaborate staging, but also for Sisi's rare public appearance in military uniform, underscoring the complex's importance to this very regime and to Egypt's armed forces. Now, the Octagon is more than a single building. It is a fortified military and administrative city spread over roughly 22,000 acres and divided into 13 strategic and logistical zones. Its distinctive layout includes 8 interconnected octagon outer structures encircling 2 central command buildings, a design meant to symbolize the integration of Egypt's armed forces with state institutions. Now, here comes the most interesting bit. By floor area, it reportedly offers around 50.5 million square feet of space, which is several times the 6.5 million square feet of the US Pentagon's building and vastly large in overall side area, reinforcing the impression of a command hub built on a grand regional scale. Now, Egypt presents the complex as a nerve center for military command, secure communication, crisis management, and data exchange across the state apparatus. In fact, it caps years of sustained military investment under Sisi, including new infrastructure, weapon systems, and organizational reforms that collectively signal Cairo's desire to be seen as a major regional security actor. Now, at least not to our surprise, this trajectory has drawn close attention from Israeli analysts and security apparatus, some of whom worry that Egypt's capabilities now exceed what is required for internal security and Sinai counterinsurgency alone. For many in Israel's security establishment, the Octagon is not just another military headquarters. It is the visible tip of a much larger Egyptian military buildup that has accelerated under Al-Sisi. Now, the sheer scale of the complex, its advanced command and control system, and its role as the brain of Egypt's armed forces suggest a long-term effort to centralize and modernize military power in ways that could matter far beyond counter-terrorism in the Sinai district. Now, even if no immediate threat is perceived, the combination of size, technology, and symbolism naturally prompts Israeli questions about how Egypt might use this capacity in a future regional crisis. In fact, Israeli analysts also point to concrete changes on the ground, especially in the Sinai border area, where they say Egyptian deployment now exceeds the limit set in the 1979 peace treaty. Regular army and mechanized units have reportedly entered zones that were meant to remain lightly armed alongside heavy investment in underground infrastructure and missile stockpile near the frontier. In fact, one veteran researcher quoted in Israeli news reports estimate that Egypt has 4 times more forces than agreed along this very border, turning what was supposed to be a thin buffer into a far more substantial military presence. Now, these very trends unfold at a time when political trust between the two sides is under heavy strain, particularly over the idea of reallocation of Palestinians from Gaza into Sinai. Israel's right-wing government showed enthusiasm for proposals floated by US President Donald Trump in early 2025 to move large number of Gazans elsewhere in the region, plans that Egypt denounced as crossing the strategic red line. From Cairo's perspective, such reallocation would destabilize Sinai and shift the Palestinian problem onto Egypt's shoulders. And from an Israeli viewpoint, Egypt's fierce rejection and tougher rhetoric deepens the sense that this relation is becoming more fragile and less predictable. Also, the dispute over the Philadelphia corridor, the narrow strip along the Gaza-Egypt border, adds another layer to Israeli concern. Israel argues that tighter control over this very corridor is vital to stop weapons smuggling into Gaza, while Egypt insists any changes must respect earlier understandings and treaty-based arrangements. Well, when these disagreements are viewed alongside Egypt's wider military modernization, its giant new Octagon complex, and the expanded troop presence in Sinai, some Israeli commentators fear that the strategic balance achieved in 1979 could gradually be eroded, even if both sides still publicly commit to the peace. Under the 1979 peace treaty, the Sinai Peninsula is divided into multiple zones with strict limits on Egyptian military deployment near the Israeli border. But now, as per Israel, that has actually changed. And these very changes intersect with other sensitive issues in Sinai, including the presence of jihadist organizations that have challenged Sisi's government and promoted a robust Egyptian counter-terrorism campaign. Now, interestingly, for years, Israel has quietly supported that campaign through intelligence sharing and by approving temporary increase in Egyptian troops levels in Sinai beyond the treaty's original ceilings, reflecting a shared interest in suppressing militant activity. Yet the same flexibility that enabled cooperation also means actual deployments now sit above the formal limits, giving Israel reason to watch Egypt's build-up. But despite these tensions, both sides still derive vital benefits from the peace treaty and ongoing security coordination. For Israel, the agreement removed the specter of a conventional war with a major Arab army, allowing it to focus on other fronts. And for Egypt, it secures decades of broader stability and opened the door to sustainable US military assistance, freeing Cairo to concentrate on challenges in Sudan, Libya, and relations with Ethiopia and domestic pressures that demand attention beyond Israel. But many analysts caution that Egypt's regional ambition and military buildup deserve careful monitoring, but should not automatically be read as preparation for conflict with Israel. In practice, mutual suspicion endures even as cooperation continues against common threats, especially in Sinai. Well, the Octagon's inauguration therefore marks a delicate moment. It amplifies questions in Israel about the long-term trajectory of this relationship, yet it also reflects Egypt's need for an integrated command structure in an increasingly complex security environment of the Middle East. For now, the balance of interests, which are Gaza border management, counter-terrorism, US ties, and treaty guarantees, still gives both sides and both nations strong reasons to keep working together, even as they rarely watch each other's move. Well, with that, it's a wrap on today's edition of From the News Desk. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm Yash Goyal signing off for Times Now Digital. Until next time, take care and keep watching this space for more such videos.